So today, our topic is writing winning proposals that are compelling, concise, and customer focused. And our guest speaker today is Girish Tekchandani, a colleague, a friend, a leader in business winning for many years. He is also one of the top six in India to achieve APMP professional, a proven trainer and consultant, not just in bidding and proposal writing, but in business winning. He has helped many organizations build their business winning capability. Today, he will share his insights on how to write compelling and winning proposals. Ladies and gentlemen, Girish Tekchandani.
Thank you so much. Those are some heavy words which I will have to carry on my shoulders, but thanks for the introduction. And also, I fully relate to what you say in terms of challenges that we faced in earlier days of writing proposals and the way we have come across with Shipley practices. So, a great opportunity for me. I'm very excited and also excited to see so many people joining us, wanting to listen to us of what we want to say about our ideas and ways of looking at how to write proposals that are winning and not proposals that are submitted. So thank you once again, and I would request all the participants, if they have any questions, comments through this presentation, we will try to cover this within the 30 minutes that is allotted to the webinar. But do write your comments, questions in the chat box, and as we go along, we will get to answer some of those and even follow through after the webinar. So let's get going. As I said, most of the practices mentioned to you are going to be based on Shipley practice. Let's get to a quick poll. So what I would request everyone to do is read the question there, and I will read it out to people as well. What is the primary objective of a business proposal from a bidder's point of view? Okay, and let's hear it from your perspective. You can pick the choice A, B, and C given there, and put the answers in the chat box, and let's see what you have. Okay, so I can see a lot of C's coming there. Somebody is saying all three. Great to see the responses coming through. Well, so the objective of this is, first of all, our perspective and also how the organizations look at this. And here was the I deliberately missed out one option, and I know one of few of them said all three, which happens to be true. If you look back to it again, I remember my earlier days when we used to give our exams, and it could be like an exam paper, and you have to respond to a examination. We were told that the more you write, the more you impress the evaluator. Okay, is that true? Is what we have to ask ourselves, and then look at these 3 points in that perspective. Okay. You have to look at it from your organization's perspective, whether you're putting your best foot forward, but at the same time, you have to have some pity on the evaluator who's going to evaluate multiple proposals and not just yours. And at the end of it, you have to also ensure that you're putting a compelling proposition, right? So whoever said that writing proposals is a regular, easygoing job, please call them up today or connect with them and say, please rethink, because it's a very, very difficult, difficult but not impossible, so to say. And let's look at this and try to unravel this dilemma that we have as proposal managers and writers of how can we ensure all of the above. Okay. So most of us would have seen this, who have been associated with us since a long time. We've done a lot of trainings. Some of you who are there in the participation, I have met you all personally, and we have had conversations during our workshops as well. So this is a very familiar picture, but I'm not going to go through the specifics of what each of these mean, but we're going to just quickly look at the right hand side and see the compliance bit, which is extremely important, how responsive you are when looking at what the customer is expecting from you, not what you want to mention to the customer, but the customer wants to hear from you, is more about the responsiveness part. Note the word focus in both strategic and competitive. So the focus around not just the customer strategy, but your strategy on winning the bid. And the left hand side is what primarily is going to be your output. Okay, so in short, the right hand side says, what are you going to tell the customer? And the left hand side says, how are you going to tell it to the customer, right? And the question is, where does the customer lie in this entire equation? Right at the core of the core principles of Shipley is what I would basically say, right? And if the customer is sitting in the core of this entire aspect of proposal management, okay, the 3 C's that we are speaking about, which is the conciseness, looking at the customer focus and how compelling you can be, becomes that much more important from that perspective. And we all fall in that bucket one way or the other when we are responsible. Okay. Now let's get to the point. So I'm sure most of the people might be thinking now, when is this man going to come to his point? It's a 30-minute talk and I have other things to do. Okay. You can keep putting your reactions on the chat window, but some of you may have already started thinking, when is he going to come to the point? It's already too long. Well, the fact is, and nothing to blame you or me, we all humans have an attention span of approximately 11 minutes. It's come out of research. And the difficult part is that once you have been successful in distracting a person, that person is not going to come back to you before 25 minutes. And that's where goes the webinar. Okay. So while you have taken the responsibility to come here, it's my responsibility to ensure that the attention stays, right? So how does it now entail from a customer's point of view, who's a decision maker, influencer who has other daily activities to do, and imagine drawing their attention towards you becomes even more difficult, so to say. And what is the art that you use to ensure that you are able to grab that attention of the customer, right? So let's get back to the core circle again. And I'm not going to talk about the deeper aspects, as I mentioned. We can talk about it post the webinar. We can chat via LinkedIn, etc. Some of you are already an expert and adopting these practices based on our workshops. So where does the answer lie? Okay, is the question. So when I looked at it deeper, I said, if you look at the principles, in the compelling aspect of your writing comes when you focus more on the responsiveness, the strategic focus that you need to adapt to, how you will make the proposition win-win for the customer and you. And keeping the competition in mind, you're going to actually put your best foot forward. That makes it very difficult for the customer then to say basically no to you. It is very difficult then because you put the best foot forward. On the other hand, while you want to speak a lot, you have to take care of, respect the time of the customer as well, and what you want to really put. So the question to be asked is that, do I want the customer to hear what I want to say? Or do I want to tell the customer what the customer wants to hear from his or her perspective? Two different aspects that we are speaking about here. And then when we are able to balance that these two, imagine this is a wheel. Okay, and I have never driven a car or a vehicle which has a square wheel or a triangular wheel. It's always a circle. So imagine you have to balance this circle across the compelling aspect and the conciseness aspect, and which is where your aspect of how customer focused you are comes in. Balancing all the aspects around, right? So let's look at now from the customer focus point of view of how effective you can be in traveling this journey with the customer. Okay. More often than not, our sales cycle are very long. Hardly I've seen deals closing in the 3 to 6 month bracket. It's been more so in the 9 to 12 months and beyond that probably. So if you look at it from customer's point of view, how do you gain the customer's respect? One is respecting the customer's time. Second is through empathy. Agreeing to the customer on what you understood as far as the challenges are concerned from the customer point of view. Then giving the aspects of proof, in my opinion, is that how do you prove that you have done these solutions or product deliveries or customer service 100% all the time is actually going to build the trust with the customer. And when that trust element is built is when you can share. The customer shares with you and you start sharing your perspectives as well, and then you land at the win-win. It's a broad perspective of how your journey goes on. And believe me, most of the times when it comes to proposal management or submitting proposals, probably that's the first time you are interacting with the customer. And that's why, in my opinion, whether it's the first presentation you're making to the customer or the first proposal going out, it's actually the interface between your organization and the customer, and it has to look top class and read top class and speak top class, right? So moving on, question would be how do I actually balance the wheel from a writing perspective? It's easier said than done. A lot of times we speak about, you have to be concise, you have to use the compelling language, etc., etc., right? Again, the principles lie in the core. What at least from the last 3 years, I have been speaking about through Shipley, and over about 2,000 odd people who have met across. Sam, maybe even more. The principles are very deep, and let's speak about it and see how we can come out with a few tips of by the end of this webinar of being concise and compelling, keeping the customer focus in mind. Okay, so I think the first instinct that comes to us always is that if I have to write a response to the proposal, let me look at what I had written in the past. Okay, and think through it, and let me know what you feel about it. But that's what I used to do. Time crunch, I would sit down and see what is available with me in the library. Let me copy and paste it and try to alter the text in a way that I have been successful, right, in writing what I want to. But a lot of times there used to be feedback coming in saying it's not really relating to what the customer is wanting to read. Okay, so how about this? A very familiar term, but can we ask ourselves a question saying, I know some of the hot buttons. Hot buttons, of course, it comprises of the issues and the motivators behind customer taking a decision towards you. How are they related to each of the decision makers and influencers? Which decision maker and influencer is going to read what section or listen to what slide of the presentation or what conversation of mine? Can I filter that out first? Okay, and basically create a content plan of saying section 1, this hot button applies, section 2, this hot button applies, section 3, this hot button applies, and of course the most important, which is the executive summary. Right? Now, once we've identified this, the other important aspect, which is the competitor focus, comes in, simply because if we miss on that aspect, we may miss on the compelling aspect on getting the customer to your side. So the bidder comparison matrix becomes important from the point of view that what do I actually want to communicate in my section to the customer, that the customer feels that there could be no one better than this bidder who understands my problem and is also willing to come that extra mile with me to solve that problem of mine. Okay? Keeping the competition at bay. Okay? So when these two aspects are met, comes the aspect of what my strategy of responding to the proposal is going to be. Okay? So if at a high level, I know that this is the hot button I'm addressing in a particular section, this is the aspect of competition which I need to keep in mind when I have to respond to that particular section. Okay? And this is how I am going to highlight my strengths, mitigate my weaknesses in that particular write-up, actually mitigate also on the other side competitor strengths, okay, and also ghosting basically is about highlighting competitor weakness without naming them. Okay. Once you are able to do that, then you are balancing the aspects as far as the compelling proposition to the customer is concerned. Right? If you started writing this in the beginning, this is when you then filter out what my actual theme for that particular section is, and is there a value proposition I'm drawing out of this by carrying out this process in the beginning. And then it allows you to actually create a draft. Okay, and we recommend this very strongly, that look at those sections where you have to write. I've had experiences where I've struggled to write 2-3 pages in one full day, simply because you have to think and write from scratch. So if you can have a tool which is a storyboarding and mock-up tool available, and we'll speak about it in a bit little more, it really helps you a lot in putting your thoughts together in a structured way. Okay? And last but not the least is, invest more on how you can get to doing language review, proofreading, and finalizing. Believe me, a lot of times we have had sentences beyond 25-30 words, and when you sit down and try to cut it down, you can easily bring it down to 15 words, for example, right? So it either there are experts who do that, or we coach or train ourselves through the tools and trainings available via Shipley or other available sources, right? So then the thought comes is that if I have put this structure in place of what I need to write as far as the storyline is concerned, other thought that should come to my mind is how can I make it easy for the customer to read that section? Okay. So one way to do it is use more illustrations. We say, use 2 illustrations per 3 page, tab information, try to bullet the information down as far as making it easy and readable is concerned. Look at those aspects more and more. And also, more importantly, this strategy can be actually used for executive summary, section content, or a commercial section, whatever you speak of. For example, I've just brought up this storyboard which I used for my presentation, which I'm presenting to you today. And I really didn't know where to start from. So it's a scribble of saying what my slide 1 is going to look like, what are the aspects that I'm trying to cover as far as the participants are concerned. In that minimal amount of time, what should I be covering as far as my messages are concerned? By the time I reached to the circular image that you see, okay, I knew what I had to speak about. So as far as being concise is concerned, and I hope I stick to this, although I'm speaking out loud, let's see how we do as far as concise messaging is concerned. But is it compelling or not is still your call, right? And that remains the customer's call in any scenario, right? So it becomes more important than is saying how I can be more concise and specific and more illustrative as far as my messaging is concerned. So my creativity is on more on the messaging side. How the customer takes it is how much you've been able to relate with the customer. So that's where the relatability message comes in. Other reference I can mention to you about is most of you would have a copy of the Shipley proposal guide. If you don't, feel free to write back. I will share the email address shortly. You can connect back to us. We will also share some excerpts of some of the sections here. And you will see that there are a lot of useful topics within the proposal guide itself, which speaks about how you can be creative in terms of your messaging, how you can draft good action captions under your image, which gives much more information than drafting lengthy paragraphs of information. It speaks about choosing correct words, what are the cliches you can avoid, what is the in which you can use headers, outlines, etc. So I just extracted one and said, for example, you could take a day, pick one day and go to the proposal guide and pick up one section about proofreading, editing, and revising, for example. Right? The other day you can go and do storyboards. Right? From my point of view, what I have realized is that the skill of understanding the hot buttons, proposal strategy, storyboarding develops over a period of time. You should not be too harsh on yourself, saying that from day one I should be able to follow this practice, because most of the times I know timelines are short. We have very little time to respond to the customer. So pick your proposals, I would say. You don't need to do it for every proposal that comes through your window. Maybe pick a sample proposal, apply your practices, see how it goes, come back. We are happy to chat with you and see what your experiences are about that, right? And see how it develops. The skill will develop over a period of time. And I'm sure at the end of it, your documents, your presentations will look much more customer focused than we would typically see, and that much more less feedback you get from your sellers or internal customers about the quality of the output. Okay, so having said that, I have 5 minutes left in this presentation, and I thought I will open this up for questions. Feel free to chat with your questions, or you can open your mics and come up with your questions, please.
Girish, one question that was sent to me
Yes, Sam.
was, at what point do we start the storyboarding?
Okay, very good question, actually. So the storyboarding has to happen from the moment you understand the customer's hot buttons and you understand the competitor landscape. Okay. So the aspect is that if you have come across people who do cartoon writing or do magazine article writing, etc., you should interact with them. I have spoken to some of the people from that background, and it's very interesting that they actually draw out figures and just put few words of bullets in the beginning to give them a track of what your thoughts should be in writing that section. So I would say As soon as you are given the information about what the customer hot buttons are, what is the perspective as far as the competition is concerned. If the competition is not clear, assume your usual suspects, right? But ensure that you're doing storyboarding for each section. I hope I've been able to answer the question.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Girish. This is Nanda from Genpact.
Hi, Nanda.
Hi, Sam as well. So this is regarding, just wanted to understanding whatever can be divulged on the present landscape. Is it still as diplomatic as ghosting, or are there being punches delivered below the belt? If you get my question.
Yes. So I think it's a good question, Nanda, and I think it's the forum in which you are able to communicate that information. Okay. When it comes to things on black and white, etc., you obviously have to, and I am a promoter of being absolutely ethical as far as your business practices are concerned, and I'm sure everybody around in this forum, and you sure from the background that you know come from, you'll actually vouch for that practice, right? But yes, there are forums where I have seen, we have had interactions with customers on a one-to-one basis, right? And they would ask for honest opinion, because as you see the traveling with the customer page that I mentioned to you about, once you build that trust with the customer and you are providing the right kind of information to them, they will take it. They will take it as long as you are being very clear and ethical in your messaging. So pick your forum, I would say. Okay. But not in black and white.
Sure, got it. Thanks. Clear.
Thank you.
Girish, another question that has come through from Elton John D'Souza is about pricing. Is pricing the most important thing to look out for?
One more very good question there. Pricing indeed is important, no doubt about that, because I would say each evaluator individual within the customer organization has a different objective or a role to play. So if it's a procurement division evaluator, they definitely are going to look at the numbers. If it's a finance business head looking at the numbers, they're going to look at it differently. But all in all, what I have seen, and also through Shipley I have seen, is that if you are communicating value to the customer instead of focusing on the price, the conversations are much more effective. Pricing, of course, is a compliance aspect. There's a clear compliance aspect that you have to deliver your pricing. And it's indeed very important. But we would recommend that focus more on the value and the benefits that you can provide to the customer.
Thanks, Girish. And Girish, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation.